This time on Bike Physics, part 2 of the story of the resurrection of my Kawasaki KE100. Thanks, Dad. This is it, my newest baby, the 1990 Kawasaki KE100. It's a two-stroke 100C, emblazoned proudly upon the side. The thing is hysterical. Brought it back about a year ago, made a video on that one on the back of our minivan. Took the whole front end off and strapped it down to a hitch rack. Hysterical. Anyway, brought it home, checked it out, took a look at it. There's some serious problems with it. The first one was no spark. So I had to fix the spark problem. So first I started with the ignition coil, and then with the spark plug boot and the spark plug. That didn't help. And then I took off the whole left-hand side, and it's a points ignition, like old stuff from like 1970. That was when it was designed. And with the help of Kevin Bergeron, check out his channel, he seems to specialize in the KE100 and other similar two-strokes. I took off that left-hand side cover, removed the flywheel, pulled the stator, realized that the condenser is probably bad because I checked all the wiring, and anyway, replaced the condenser, spark, started right up. It was great, but it only ran on choke. Choke's right down there, only ran on choke. Eventually had to pull off the right-hand side cover, pull off the carburetor, clean all the gunk out of the inside, put it all back together. It ran great. So about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, first solid ride. It was beautiful on a crappy rainy day. Went to Aldi, pick up a couple of things, and then, I rode it for a while, and it worked out really, really well. It was super great until just a couple of days ago. But anyway, the things I've had to replace. We'll get back to the problems in a bit. Now, this handlebar. This handlebar was all twisted. I'm like riding down the road like that. Well, that thing had to be replaced. I had one sitting in the basement. It wasn't high enough because I wanted to lower the front end just a little bit, so I bought some risers for it. Had a couple of risers and an old bar that I had sitting around in the basement. This front tire, the original front tire, hard, yucky, not so good. Wasn't planning on gripping the road, so got rid of that one. It's also cracked. And the rear tire also, got a couple of new tires, new tubes, new rim strips, put those things on. It was a pretty simple process because it's very similar to my cheap Chinese moto in Paraguay, that Kenton GL150. Oh, spectacular adventures. I plan to put this baby on there, just a little rear rack. Got to be able to carry something, right? So it's going to fit right there. It's got a bolt right there. I've got to extend an attachment right there, but look at that. Looks like it's factory. Pretty sweet. Then first thing I actually purchased was the motorcycle manual. That thing describes everything, all the theory, it's actually really, really good. Official Kawasaki. And got some other parts. Here's the ignition coil. That's the old one. Here's the new ignition coil box. These are some pegs I plan to put on with some modifications. The petcock, this gas valve right here, wasn't working at all. Got a new one on Amazon for $7. Dad tried to replace it 20 years ago, but Amazon didn't exist and he couldn't find it. New eBay, Amazon, spectacular things. Here's a puller for the stator, the puller for the flywheel, and some fuel line, which was yucky, and the turn signal relay. I was driving down the road, had to be at like 4,000 or 5,000 RPM in order to get the turn signals to flash. Bought a new relay, seems to function fine. But a couple days ago, it just quit on me, just stopped. I'm riding along in no avail. Oh, and by the way, I'm 6'5". Got to sit forward a little bit to keep the weight centered properly so that when I'm riding it, the suspension is working correctly on both ends. If I sit back here, the suspension in the rear end is working and the suspension in the front end isn't. If I sit up here, the suspension on both of them is working. So I have to actually sit properly to get the thing to function. It's crazy. Anyway, riding along, suddenly it just cuts out. Well, it's cut out before, and I kick it over for a while and I try to bump start it, and it starts up again. Maybe there's an intermittent electrical problem. So took it apart, stuck, couldn't get it started, worked on it for like an hour, went back with the car, worked on it for an hour again, pulled the spark plug, wasn't getting any spark, checked a bunch of other things, and it turns out that, looks like that electrical problem is back again, no spark. So I just checked the resistance for the igniter coil, the exciter coil that actually sends the signal to the ignition coil to send a spark. Well, that thing seems to be bad. So we've got to pull that thing, get a new condenser just in case, because I think I bought a cheap Chinese one which isn't something you want for some electrical thing. So I bought an official Kawasaki one that's on its way, and I also found an alternator shop nearby, an old generator shop, run for couple of generations. And I'm going to take it to that, have them rewind the whole thing, and try to get it on the road again. Sorry, no video of it on the road today, but oh, this thing is hysterical. Up the steepest hill I could find around here, right? So I'm riding along in third gear, got to shift down to second gear, and then eventually at 17 miles an hour, got to shift down to first gear to get this little 100cc engine with 11 horsepower to climb that hill. It is absolutely spectacular. Well, we'll get back to you later. Got to make a tool, right? So I use this piece of wood to make a wrench to hold the flywheel in place with those two pins and those two holes with a 14mm socket through that central hole. I made a metal replacement since that wood one wasn't going to hold up for too long. Cut it at 45 degrees, that piece of rod, welded it, all gloopy, and then put those little nuts through it. Holds real well. Next time I'll put half the family aboard and ride this thing around and have a good time. The Kawasaki KE100 is pretty sweet. Thanks for watching Bike Physics for all the bicycles and motorcycles and family adventures. And thanks for that thumbs up too. Really helps a lot. New videos most Tuesdays. Subscribe for more. And you haven't figured it out yet, I got this other channel called Learn Physics. It's all about physics and education and that kind of thing. So check that out too.